Hello, 5th grade. Today we will be reading chapters 36 through 39 of Where the Mountain Meets the Moon. So let's go ahead and open up to page 192 in our books. Chapter 36. Minley was so tired that she could barely remember what happened when they entered the village. She hardly remembered the clamor of people gathering around them and the loud cheers as Daafu told about the destruction of the green tiger. And she vaguely remembered the big, soft hug of an elderly woman who pushed her inside a welcoming house. But she did remember the cozy, lovely feeling of falling into a bed, like holding a warm, steamed bun on an icy day. And then Minley closed her eyes and slept. When she woke up, 3 round faces peered above her like plump peaches. They were Dafu, Afu, and Amma, their grandmother. Each of the children, dressed in their red wadded cotton outfits, the rip in Dafu's pants was now patched, had little movable stoves with them. With the heaters and all of them crowded in the room, Minley felt as if she were in a warm oven of kindness. She smiled. "Good morning," Amma said. The children giggled. "Good night," Dafu said. "You slept the whole day. Pretty soon it'll be time to go to bed again." "Now, Dafu, don't tease the girl," Amma said. Obviously, she was very tired. "Here, Minley, drink this." Amma poured some tea from a pot and handed Minley a cup. Minley sipped it gratefully. The steaming liquid slipped down her throat smoothly and seemed to fill every part of her with a fresh energy. She took another sip of tea and breathed in the tangy fragrance, which smelled familiar. "This is nice tea," Minley said. "Thank you." "It's not tea," Afu said. "It's the medicine that cures the tiger's poison." "It is tea as well," Amma said. "It is good whether you have been touched by the green tiger or not." Minley stopped drinking. "Is there enough of this for the dragon?" Minley asked, remembering how Agong had asked them to bring more medicine. "Maybe we should take this to him." Daafu laughed again. "Don't worry," they said. "We have a lot of it. It's made from the leaves of the flowering trees." "And Daafu already brought a large pot to your dragon friend," Amma said, her wrinkled face looking kindly at Minley. "Yes," Avu said, "your dragon is doing fine. He and Agong were talking to each other when I brought the pot, and even said thank you for saving him from the green tiger's poison." Minley sat back, relieved and cheered by their words. "What was the green tiger? Daafu said something about a magistrate?" she asked. "And how did you know this tea cured the tiger's poison?" "We found that out by accident," Amma said. The story of the green tiger and the tea. When the green tiger discovered us 4 moons ago, we quickly learned he was not an ordinary tiger. It was not his color or his size. It was the anger he had for us. First, he attacked our livestock, the sheep, the pigs, the chickens, but not to eat, just to kill. He taunted us with his evil, leaving the dying animals in a row outside our door. Whatever animals he did not kill outright died within an hour or so from the vile poison of the tiger's touch. We knew it was just a matter of time before he caught one of us. We kept the children and whatever animals we had left inside. Agong, my husband, studied furiously, trying to find out more about this powerful monster who tormented us. We were running out of food when Agong finally discovered what the green tiger was. When Agong was a young man, he had made a journey to the city south of here and bought an old book of history. That book, with our ancestors' ancient texts, was how Agong discovered that the green tiger was the spirit of the magistrate our ancestors had tried to give the secret of happiness to, but had angered instead. During his life, the magistrate had filled his spirit with so much rage that when his body left, his spirit could not rest and instead turned into the green tiger. Agong learned that the green tiger searched for all those he had felt wronged him. The tiger would punish us for his imagined offense, and then when he felt the punishment was complete, destroy us. Afterward, he would find others who had wronged him and punish and destroy them as well. Who knows how many people he hurt before he came to us? Perhaps we were lucky he only found us 4 moons ago. Now, 5th grade, how many of you thought this was the family who was happy all the time and all tried to give Magistrate Tiger the truth of happiness. I know I thought it might be them, just because they're all so cheerful all the time. In desperation, the men decided to form a hunting party to try to kill the tiger, but the green tiger was too powerful for us. Our swords and staffs were shattered by him. The hunting party returned, half of the men carried by the other half, and almost all injured. The women and children, we tried to nurse the injured, but they kept getting sicker and sicker from the tiger's poison, and I began to despair. Though it had not worked on any of the animals in the past, I thought perhaps hot water could wash the poison from the wounds. So even though it was dangerous, I left the house to get water from the well. Just as I returned, I saw the tiger. He was standing in front of our gate, doing something peculiar. He seemed to be arranging things. I kept a far distance, behind the trunk of a flowering tree. He soon finished and left, not noticing me. As soon as he left, I carefully rushed to the gate. The tiger had left a strange array of objects. There was a piece of a broken vase with a moon on it, a mangled child's jacket, and 2 deep claw marks scratched into the stone. I knew it was a message, but what did it say? The only person who would know would be Agong, but he was sick and dying from the tiger's poison. My eyes filled with tears as I rushed inside. It was hard for me to keep from crying, and I was blinded by my own tears, so it was only when the fragrance filled the air that I realized that the water I was boiling had leaves from the flowering trees in it. They must have fallen in while I was hiding from the green tiger. It was too dangerous to go and get more water. Everyone was horrified that I had gone at all, so I used the hot leaf water to clean Agong's wound, and like magic the poison began to melt away. I couldn't believe it. I gave Agong some leaf water tea to drink, and immediately his hoarse breathing was soothed and his face relaxed. Quickly, we used the tea on all the men, and by the time the last injured man was given the tea, Agong was sitting up in his bed with Daafu at his side. I was a fool, he said to us. I should have known we could not fight the green tiger with more anger. We just add to his power that way. His anger is his strength, but it can also be his weakness. His anger can blind him, and that is when he is vulnerable. Maybe if I can find who angered the magistrate the most, I can. You are definitely recovering, I had to smile. Already you are making plans, but why don't you rest for now? No, Agong waved away my concerns. I must learn more, immediately before the green tiger does more damage. I knew then that Agong needed to see the green tiger's message right away. Daafu and I wrapped him in blankets and supported him as he hobbled to the gate. Agong looked grave as he examined the objects. Just as I thought, he knew right away what it meant. What is the green tiger saying? Afu asked. It says if we give him 2 children every month, he will leave us in peace, Agong said. This is the start of his punishment for us, the way we are to pay penance for our ancestors. How does it say that? Daafu asked. 2 claw marks next to a child's clothes means he wants 2 children, and the vase is a symbol of peace. The moon on it means every month. So he offers us a month of peace for 2 children, Agong said. It matters not. We will not sacrifice even a baby pig to him. But Afu and I had other ideas, Daafu said, interrupting. After Agong found out that the person who angered the green tiger the most was his own son, he was a king and he had banished the magistrate tiger from the kingdom. We made a plan. Yes, Afu said proudly. We decided we would trick the green tiger into getting so angry that he would destroy himself in the well. That he would destroy himself in the well. And our plan worked. It was also a plan that we did not approve of or agree to, Amma said, shaking her head at them, even though she could not help smiling affectionately. But now, young Minli, you have heard our story, but we have not heard yours. We know your name and that you are friends with a dragon, and we can guess you are far from home. Why don't you tell us the rest? So Minli told them about Ma and Ba, their struggles in the muddy fields, the goldfish man and the goldfish. She told them about meeting the dragon that could not fly, and the monkeys and the buffalo boy. She told them about the king of the city of bright moonlight and the borrowed lions. She told them about her whole journey. And as she spoke, Daafu and their grandmother laughed and gasped and stared in wonder. Sometimes Amma shook her head. Sometimes Daafu would look at each other in disbelief, but they did not interrupt once. So all of this to get to Never-Ending Mountain, Dafu said finally. We know where that is. You do? Minli exclaimed, sitting up in excitement. Really? Yes, Never-Ending Mountain is nearby, Afu said. About a day's journey. Minli looked at them in shock, and no words could come out of her mouth. A day's journey? After all their days of traveling, Minli couldn't believe they were so close. As soon as your dragon friend is well, Amma said, Daafu will take you there, and then you can return to your parents. Minli smiled gratefully, but as she looked at their comfortable round pink faces, how both Afu and Dafu leaned against their grandmother with devotion, and how she rested her hands on their heads with tenderness, Minli suddenly thought of Mamba. A wave of longing washed through her, and a dryness caught in her throat that the tea could not moisten. Chapter 37. The next morning, Dafu shook Minli awake. Wake up, sleepy, Dafu said, pulling her up. Come on, we want to show you something. Yes, Dafu said, hurry. Minli followed them out of the house and through those streets. It was almost as if there were a parade, for all the family were coming out of their houses and following. Minli hadn't realized Dafu's family was so large. There were aunts, uncles, cousins. The home behind the red gate doors was really a village of relatives. As Minli ran around through the open doors, she stopped and grinned, because there, waiting on the stone ground, was Dragon. He was strong and smiling, sitting straight and alert. There was no daze in his eyes and no foul blackness on his body. In fact, except for 4 pale raised scars on his arm, he looked exactly as he did before they met the green tiger. You're okay, Minli said as she hugged him. Of course, Dragon said to her, grinning with happiness. I told you that dragons heal quickly. Yes, they do, Agong said from beside her. After the poison left him, his wounds healed almost immediately. Minli was so happy to see Dragon that she didn't notice that most of Daafu's family were surrounding them in awe. A dragon, she heard one small boy whisper. A real one. We told you so, Daafu murmured to their cousins. See? Unfortunately, friend dragon, Agong said loudly so that all could hear, you are too large for us to show you proper hospitality inside our home. That's okay. We should leave soon anyway, Minli said, and turned to Daafu. If you will still show us the way to Never-Ending Mountain? Of course, they grinned, and Amma said, yes, you should leave as soon as you can. The sooner you leave, the sooner you can return to your parents. That would be for the best. Agong nodded when he heard Amma's words. Breakfast then, he said, and then we will see our new friends off. So even though the rocky land was cold and windy, the family brought their breakfast of warm rice porridge out to eat. No one wanted to miss a moment of looking at a real dragon. Amma had a large iron pot rolled in on a rough wood platform by 2 of Daafu's uncles, in front of the dragon. The pot was steaming and full, and Minli recognized it as the medicine tea. An aunt carried cups of the tea on 2 trays, balanced on her shoulders with a stick for anyone to take. Minli carefully reached for a cup. The fragrant aroma was too tempting to let pass. We should not call this drink medicine, an uncle said. It is too delicious, and now that there is no more green tiger, there is nothing for it to cure. Maybe we should call it well tea, Afu laughed, since the green tiger is down in the well. No, Agong said, we want to remember our friends, not our enemies. Then we should call it dragon well tea, Dafu said, because it made the dragon well. The family all cheered at that. There was a look of softness in Dragon's eyes that Minli had never seen before. He was unused to kindness, she realized. He had spent most of his years alone and trapped by his flightless body. Too soon breakfast was over and Minli was packing her possessions into the yellow silk bag the king had given her, while Amma tied supplies onto the backs of Afu and Dafu. Just in case, she said, slipping in their simple food of rice, wrapped up in leaves and salted boiled eggs. Bring Minli to Never-Ending Mountain and then come right home. Agong put his hands on Minli's shoulders and said, You're a brave girl, Minli, quick and clever, but you have been away from home too long. Go as quickly as you can. Amma wrapped her arms around Minli, then brought out a warm jacket. For you, she said. We made it while you were sleeping. Your dress is too thin for the mountain. The jacket was multicolored, made of large patches sewn together. Some dark blue, some deep purple, a few bright red. Milly smiled thankfully. Already the cold wind was chilling her, but she was hesitant to ask these people for anything since they had already given her so much. As she put it on, she marveled at its warmth. The fabric looked like plain cotton, but she felt as warm as if she had put on a thick fur. "Let's go then," Daafu said, and the boy swung up his arm in excitement. It was only then that Milly noticed a large gash missing from his sleeve. She looked at the sleeve of her new coat and the bright red patch that made it, and she gasped. "Goodbye," Daafu's family waved. As they waved, Milly saw each of them had missing material in their sleeves. Her goodbyes froze in her throat as she realized her warm coat was made of pieces cut from the family's own clothing. "Come on," Afu said, her white hand slipping from her notched sleeve to pull at Milly. "Hurry up!" "Yes," Dragon said, "we should go so the twins can return to their village as soon as possible." Milly nodded, and as she waved a grateful goodbye to the village, a sea of ruined sleeves fluttered back at her. Chapter 38. As Milly and Dragon followed Daafu up the harsh landscape, the wind blew wildly. But traveling was not difficult. Dragon carried them over any large cracks or openings. Milly had forgotten how enjoyable it was to travel with him, and Daafu, laughing with pure delight as they rode Dragon, looked like two ripe hawthorn berries. Their merriment and the brilliant red color of their clothes and of Dragon himself seemed to warm the cold landscape. It was only when Milly's hands poked out of her sleeves into the icy air that she realized how cold it really was. "It's not much farther," Afu said to them after they had walked some distance. "We should be able to see Never-Ending Mountain soon." "You've never seen the Old Man of the Moon, though?" Milly asked. "Has anyone?" Daafu shook their heads. "No one has ever seen him," Daafu said. "No one in the history of our family or village." "Though we do know he is the one who moved our ancestors here," Afu said. "The Old Man of the Moon brought your ancestors here?" Milly asked. "How?" The story of Daafu's ancestors. Even though our ancestors did their best to please the magistrate, they were not able to make him happy. One day a neighbor rushed to our ancestors' home, his horse panting from running. "I have just returned from the city," the neighbor gasped. "I rushed all the way here to warn you. The magistrate is convinced the answer you sent him was a trick, and you were keeping the real secret from him. He is coming here to punish you. He plans to destroy your home and family. Run away while you can. There is not much time. His soldiers will be here tomorrow." Our ancestors cried with fear. The large family, the many sons and daughters, aunts and uncles, and children and grandchildren, could not help being scared. But Yeye, the great-grandfather and head of the family, raised his hand for attention. "It looks as if more misfortune is coming," he said, "and there is nothing we can do. We will not run. The soldiers could easily find us, and the magistrate would be even more brutal. And I do not want to spend our last moments together in panicked flight." Yeye looked at the bright blue sky and sun shining on the mountain behind their home. It was hard to imagine the coming trouble. "Little ones," he said to the children, "go fetch your favorite kites." Then Yeye turned to the adults. "Sons and daughters," he said, "prepare the finest picnic you can, with enough food and tea for all. We will not waste this time we have together. We will spend it as we always have, in happiness." The family nodded at Yeye's wise words. Quickly they rushed to do as he asked. They brewed large pots of their best chrysanthemum tea, and filled special baskets with golden cakes and custard tarts, boiled chickens, crispy pork, fluffy steamed buns, and tea-stained eggs. And their brilliant kites in the shapes of bugs and butterflies were dragged out of storage and into the sun. Yeye smiled at his family as they finished their tasks. He carried his favorite books of poetry, stories, and songs in a bag. "Come," he said, "let us climb the mountain." So together with the tree leaves waving farewell, the family made their way up the mountain. They climbed high so the kites could fly without the trees getting in the way. When there was nothing between them and the sky, they stopped. And they had a delightful time. The children laughed as their kites soared in the wind. The women smiled as they sipped the tea, and the men happily ate the delicious treats. Yeye recited poetry that made the women sigh, told stories that made the men gasp, and sang songs that made all the children join in. But all too soon the day was ending. The moon was already rising in the sky when the children were told to wind the strings of their kites. "Why bring the kites down?" an older boy asked. "This will be the last time we will be able to play them." "Yes," a girl said. "Let them fly for as long as they can." So instead of bringing the kites in, they cut the strings. As the kites were freed, a strong gust of wind burst from the sky. One by one, the butterflies and dragons disappeared as if flying home to the moon. As the kites vanished from sight, there was a sad sigh. No one spoke, but they all wished for an escape from tomorrow's tragedy. Quietly, the family packed their belongings and began to climb down the mountain. They walked a long time, so long that the moon rose overhead, and they began to shiver with cold. "Are we lost?" a child asked. "This does not look like the way home." "That's impossible," his mother told him. "How can we be lost? There is no other direction than down." "But the boy is right," Yeye said. "Look at the rock before us. We have climbed this mountain many times, yet I have never seen this rock or any rock of this type before." "And there are no trees," the young girl said. "Always there were trees below us, and now there is just more rock." "It's colder, too," another said. It is much too cold for an early autumn night." "What has happened?" a woman asked. "I think," Yeye said slowly, "we are no longer on our mountain. Somehow we are on a different one." "How is that possible?" a man asked, "and why?" Before Yeye could open his mouth to reply, one of the children shouted. "Home!" she cried. "Our home is right there!" And it was their home. The dark red gate doors were wide open, allowing them to see light shining from the windows of their house. Their chickens squawked a greeting, and their dogs jumped through the gate with cheerful barks. Our ancestors couldn't believe it. Dirty pots and pans that they had left in the morning were still in the wash basin. Mixed up shoes and hanging laundry were exactly where they were before. Even the book that Yeye had left was open on the same page. Yeye walked from room to room and house to house, with the family following like a parade. Finally, he found a slip of bright pink silk stuck in the hinges of the gate doors. He turned around to look at the family crowding about him. "It is a miracle," he said to them. "We have been moved here, beyond the magistrate's reach. We are saved." The family cheered, but could not help asking, "How? Who did this?" Yeye looked at the empty land around him, and the dark blue sky with the moon above, and then at the thin strip of silk in his hand. "The silk is from one of the children's kites. The kites brought our wishes up to the old man of the moon, and he must have decided that our destiny lay here," Yeye said, and he motioned upward. "For there is only one other here with us tonight. It is only us and the moon." "And your family has been here ever since?" Dragon asked. Both children nodded. "For over 100 years, our family has lived on the mountain, and we kept growing. Sometimes we travel down the mountain, sometimes people come to us. Anyone who visits is welcome to call our place home." "So," Minli began, but her words died away as Dafu pointed toward the horizon. Minli and Dragon followed his hand and finally saw what could only be Never-Ending Mountain, because of the Old Man of the Moon. Home of the Old Man of the Moon. Chapter 39. Never-Ending Mountain was enormous, so large that it made Fruitless Mountain seem like a loose pebble. Minli could not see the tip or the bottom of it, as it seemed to grow out of a gorge so deep that the base must have been at the foundation of the earth. Minli felt as if she were on the edge of the world, as she stared across the great gulf separating them from the Never-Ending Mountain. It stood before them like a piece of raw green stone, towering forever into the sky and disappearing into silver mist. "There it is," Dafu said. "Never-Ending Mountain." "I bet the Old Man of the Moon does live up there," Afu said. "The top of this mountain must reach the moon." "How do we get up there?" Minli asked. She was starting to feel dizzy from staring upward so long. The dragon looked chagrined. "If I could fly," he said, "I'd be able to get us up there to see the Old Man of the Moon." "If you could fly," Afu laughed, "you would not need to see him." "But," Minli said, "it looks like flying is the only way up to see the Old Man of the Moon." "If you, There's probably another way," Afu said. "Yes," Dafu said, "you probably just have to let the Old Man of the Moon know you'd like to come up." How do we do that? Dragon asked. Send a message? Minli looked at the sky as Dragon and Dafu continued to talk. Send a message. Send a message. Dragon's words echoed in Minli's ears, and she felt as if she were searching for a match to light a lantern. The wind gusted at her as if trying to tell her something. She watched Afu's braid fly in the air. As she pulled it down, the cut pieces of her sleeve flapped like the tail of a kite. I know, Minli said excitedly. We'll do it like your ancestors did. She quickly kneeled on the ground and reached in her traveling bag for the 2 borrowed lines. Dragon and the children looked at her curiously as she waved the sheet of paper and the string before them. We can fly a kite up to the old man of the moon, Minli exclaimed. I'll make a kite of the 2 borrowed lines. That's bound to get his attention. Dafu and the dragon grinned, and together they made the borrowed lines into a kite. They fastened the page from the Book of Fortune onto Minli's chopsticks and attached an end of the red cord to the kite. But as they tried to trim their thread, Afu thought it would look neater if the end didn't dangle. They discovered that the borrowed line could not be cut. It is a string of destiny, Dragon said, as he tried again without success to cut the thread with his claw. Each of them in succession had tried to break it. Dafu even tried to snap it with his teeth. It is reasonable to think it is unbreakable. Well, we don't need to trim the string to make the kite, Minli said, but we can't cut the kite free to go to the moon. Just fly it until the string runs out, Dafu said. Then let go. Minli nodded. It made sense, and they gazed at the wound coil. She said, amused, It won't take too long for the string to run out anyway. There isn't a lot there. I just hope there's enough for it to fly, Afu said. So with Dafu running, they began to fly the kite. As the kite rose higher and higher, Minli watched the coil of string in her hand. Is the string running out yet? Each asked over and over again, but Minli shook her head every time. The thread seemed to endlessly unwind, even as the kite climbed upward, becoming the size of a name chop mark. That's like an accent. The string continued. Slowly it disappeared from view, with the thread scratching the darkening sky with a faint red line. That is a magic string, Dafu said in an odd voice. Of course, said the dragon suddenly. It's a thread of destiny. If we are destined to see the old man of the moon, it will stretch to reach him. You may be destined to meet him then, Afu said, impressed. However, as she looked at the sky turning to night, she frowned. But we are not. Dafu, we should go back home. We have been gone too long. After the green tiger, we should try not to worry Amon Agong too much. Don't you have anything you want to ask the old man of the moon? Minli asked. You could change your fortune too. No, Dafu said, laughing. Why would we want to change our fortune? The children ran down the mountain, their laughter melting into the air. Minli shook her head in confusion, but waved goodbye. As Minli watched them turn into figures of shadows, seeming to dance toward the home and village, she thought of her own Ma and Ba waiting for her in her home far away. As the sky deepened like brewing tea, Minli and the dragon looked in silence at the red line reaching to the heavens. But just as soon as the moon rose in the darkness, Minli felt a sudden jerk on the string. It began to strain and bend. Something's happening, she cried out. Pull the kite in, Dragon said. Bring it back. Something has changed, Minli said as she strained and pulled. It's heavy now. The dragon reached above Minli's head and grabbed the cord. Together they pulled and dragged. As they strained, Minli wondered if they were bringing down the moon itself. But there seemed to be no end to the string. As they wound up on the thread, it seemed to get thicker and thicker, and when the string became the width of Minli's little finger, a strange clattering, like a wooden wind chime, filled the air. Something has happened to the string, Dragon gasped between heaves. And something strange had happened. The thread, which was really now more like a thick silk rope, seemed to have divided itself into a long, strange web, reinforced with bamboo stalks. As the endless U-shape came toward them, Minli gasped. The string, Minli panted. It's a bridge. And we can see on page 223 that bridge that Minli was talking about. So 5th grade, what do you think is going to happen in the next few chapters? Do you think they will actually get to meet the old man of the moon and he'll answer their questions? Do you think Minli will make it back safely home? I'm going to leave you with those questions. Nice job today, 5th grade.